Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Robin Cangie, who is the founder of the Empowered Freelancer. Robin, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mike. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk with you because these days people know that you can start a business or create a side hustle without stopping your full-time job and without having to buy, businesses or whatnot. And freelancing is either allows them to do more than they could do because it takes things off of their plate, or it just opens up doors. So I'm excited to see your approach to this industry. So before we get into that, give us a little bit of your background and then what led you to start your agency.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a marketing background in the tech industry, actually. I worked in corporate marketing roles, B2B software companies mostly, for about 10 years. And then in 2017, my company was acquired, which was a great success story on paper, but it also meant that I needed to find a new job. I had been heading up marketing at that company for the last 4 years and had gotten used to working remotely. We were partly distributed, realized I didn't want to find another corporate job. What I wanted to do was take the opportunity that it felt like the universe was shoving at me to start my own thing, which is something I had dreamed about doing for years and years. So I flailed and was super confused for about the first 6 months. I remember feeling very alone, very isolated, and like there was so much conflicting information online. And pretty much the only thing that I couldn't find was the information I really needed, which was honest, real talk about what it's like to be self-employed. So I did eventually find my footing and started working with a number of marketing clients, built up a nice little six-figure income stream for myself, and about a year ago started thinking, maybe there's more to this. What's the next step? And started thinking about what I really wanted to do. And out of that, the Empowered Freelancer was born. And I really wanted to be a place, we're a marketing website. We talk about marketing. That's my background. That's why people come to me. But I also want to share that honest talk about being self-employed, being a freelancer in today's world, and the messy, non-glossy stuff that other business websites seem to want to just sort of paper over. So that's why we're here.
Excellent. And, it's your story is very, very similar to what we hear and see on Shark Tank. Hey, we needed this thing and I went out to find it. It's not there. So here we are, we created it. So it makes me wonder, are you a agency that trains other freelancers to do freelancing as a business, or are you a freelancer that does marketing work for companies that need to have it done and they need an outsourcer?
Yeah, so I'm honestly a little bit of both. I work with entrepreneurs and startups on the corporate side to help them feel less confused and refined about their marketing. And the Empowered Freelancer is definitely the newer side of my business. And that is, it's less of an agency and just really more of, well, I guess agency works if you want to just call me a one-woman agency. But it's really a place to help freelancers and anyone who's self-employed, really. So I sometimes will say entrepreneurial sorts, to get their head around what it takes to promote themselves. There are so many misconceptions out there about, especially among the self-employed crowd, people who are very good at what they do. They've often had a long and successful corporate career and decide, hey, I want more freedom, I want more money, I want more time, whatever it is. I think I'll try my own thing. And they get out there and they realize they're still really good at what they do, but now they have to become marketers too, and they have no idea what to do or where to go. And that's the kinds of people the Empowered Freelancer is designed to help.
And do you ever have someone that you're working with that I feel like that, of course they go, wow, marketing is so vast, which it is, and we just don't know what to do, or we know we should be doing it, but we don't have the time to do it. So that's wonderful. But then, and we'll talk about some of the things you do, because I think that's going to be helpful to go, oh, that project. It would be wonderful for my business. I just don't want to do it or don't have time to do it. But I think one of the steps that many entrepreneurs do run into, which is, I just don't like talking about myself and I feel too braggy or, imposter syndrome kicks in. So what do you do when you're talking to an entrepreneur that you go, look, you've got to get the word out about you and talk about you. And, I get it. You don't want to do it yourself. So we'll do it. But then they're like, we need to kind of tone that down a bit.
Yeah, so this is one of the most common things that I hear. It's so common that I wrote an article about it for my blog as part of a 5-part series about the biggest myths that I hear about marketing. And one of the biggest ones of all time is this belief, especially among talented people, that if I'm really good at what I do, I don't need marketing because my work should be able to speak for itself.
Yeah.
And that's a lovely fantasy. It's very rarely true. And I suspect that this comes from something that most of us learn it really young, right? When we're kids in school, we're taught that if we work hard, we follow the rules, we color inside the lines, then we'll be rewarded. And for the first 18 years of our life, that's actually true. We work hard and we get good grades, and we don't have to talk about those grades in order to make the dean's list. In fact, the school even does us a favor of telling our parents for us. Truly, all we have to do is work hard and be good at what we're doing. That doesn't pan out so well once you enter the grown-up world, whether that is in a corporate job or running your own business. And so what I tell people who believe that their work should speak for itself is I say, no, actually, you must speak for your work. In other words, you have to be your own best advocate, especially at the beginning. If you don't believe in your work enough to speak for it, then it's really hard to expect others to believe in your work too. And that's a real mental shift that I see a lot of people struggling to make.
One thing that you said that I think is super important is the fact that, if is kind of like a old, way back in the day, old school, thought, which is it might have been accurate way back then, but something happened, a few years ago, and by a few, I mean probably like 10 plus, the digital age comes, and people can get anything they want immediately. So while your work in whatever industry or whatever you do might stand for stuff, and you might find referrals and word of mouth kicking in, these days people need X, whatever that they're looking for. And it used to be they'll chit chat with their friends this weekend and ask what they need, and all of a sudden there's the referral and my business is growing because my results stand for self. But today people pull out the phone and they Google and whatever they do, right? They go to social media, they go to Google, they search, and now your competitors are in the face of the target audience. So yes, your work should speak for itself because you should do wonderful work, but you cannot just assume that it will come to you. You've got to create that breadcrumb trail for the buyer's journey that happens, because everybody goes through the buyer's journey, no matter what you sell, unless it's pencils or bubble gum. If you're a service-based business or tech-based business, before they buy from you, credit card or sign on the dotted line, they are confused about this thing and that thing, and they need to understand it. So they need to talk to you, go to a webinar, go to a workshop, you read on your website. Those kind of things have to happen. So talk a little bit about what you recommend an entrepreneur to do to establish that, and then what you would do to take that off their plate. Because you're not just going to say, oh, I've got it covered and poof, I'm going to do it. You're going to teach your clients why it's important. You're going to have them understand the strategy, and then you're going to go, okay, don't fret, I'm going to do it for you.
So I want to make sure we're clear about one thing. I'm not very much of a done for you service. I focus a lot more on the high level strategic stuff. I tell people, look, if you want a copywriter, if you want a social media manager, there are way cheaper people out there, and I could probably refer you to somebody. But I'm really here to help you figure out, what is my marketing blueprint? Who's my target audience? How do I position myself? How do I, what are my buyer personas or client personas? Things like that. So just want to clarify that. But as far as what should someone do who is just getting started in marketing, knows they need to do it, feeling overwhelmed by the sense of pressure to be everywhere on all the things, I will usually say, let's start with who you're going after. Let's start with your audience. What do we know about them? what do we know about where they hang out? What do we know about what their pains are and what they care about? And it's fascinating to me how few people have really given this much thought. And not just people who are self-employed and who could be forgiven for it because they don't know much about marketing. Big companies too, established companies with marketing departments. Often, maybe they did some buyer personas and they shoved them in a drawer and haven't looked at them in 5 years. It's really amazing to me how much money is wasted on marketing without giving thought to your actual audience.
Yeah.
So that is 99 times out of 100 where I recommend we start. And that can take a number of different forms depending on the business that you're in and the kind of work that you provide. But it usually means conducting a bit of research on your own. And this is something that I will help people with. I will go out and conduct client interviews. I can help them kind of put together a program to get this information, whether that's, surveys or interviews or some of both. But really, I think it's important to approach it from both the qualitative and the quantitative angles as much as possible. So you want to get that qualitative data of actually talking to prospective and real clients or people who fit the profile of the person that you want to be serving. And you probably have some people in your network who do. You might be surprised. People are usually pretty open to talking about their challenges and their reasons for choosing one service over another. It's also really helpful to take a look at the kinds of publications and thought leaders who are prominent within your target industry or market. That gives you a sense of what people at large are talking about, the kinds of problems that feel really present and pressing within the industry. And you can go to social media too. There are all kinds of Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, even Clubhouse now groups of professionals in various industries who are talking about their work and talking about their challenges. So that is one big benefit of all of these different social media channels. There is a lot of information out there, but if you know how to navigate it, you can learn a lot more about your target audience a lot more quickly than you ever could before the internet. So long story short, that's where I recommend people start. Get to know your target audience. The rest of your strategy is going to flow from that.
Yeah, I teach my clients to do, very much the same thing. You got to know who you want to talk to, really dialed in. You got to know what you specifically do to help them, so a really tight competitive advantage. And then you move on to who already has the know, like, and trust with your target audience so you can develop strategic alliances. So here, one thing when you were mentioning about interviews, I think that's really smart and powerful. It makes me wonder, though, when you're doing an interview, I'm assuming you're doing it on the behalf of client X, right? So, hey, I'm Robin. I'm working with client X and just wanted to get some, clarification or talk you through this, quick interview. How do you get past the fact that they probably are assuming that it's really a sales call? You're just calling it a survey or an interview. How do you just let them know that it's purely for research so that we can help craft our services, to better serve you in the future or whatever the case is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually haven't had much of a problem with that.
Well, maybe it's just me being cynical.
Maybe. Well, I'll tell you what I do. I always request that the client introduce me. So I'm getting a warm handoff to this person. And then I will give a little spiel like, hi, I'm a marketing consultant. I'm working on behalf of X company or X client to help them understand who their best clients are and how to position themselves better in their market. And I'd love to ask you a few questions to help learn more about your experience working with this client. Or maybe if they're a network connection as opposed to a client, I'll say about your experiences in this industry that my client is interested in. So I really, from the beginning, just set the stage that this is a research call. And I also emphasize I'm grateful for your time. I haven't yet had to none of my clients who've gone through this have had to offer an incentive because there's usually enough goodwill already in the relationship that the person is willing to do it. And then once I start asking questions, it becomes very, very clear that it's not a sales call, that it's very much a research call. So I think setting good expectations at the beginning does most of the work, and then any lingering doubts go away as soon as I ask the first few questions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think one of the results of that is not only the research you get, but I would venture to say that it kind of bolsters the relationship between the client and the company at the same time, because they realize, wow, my voice is being heard, and I appreciate that. So I think that's a big aspect that you're experience.
Yeah, I think people like being listened to, and they like feeling like they're important. And I don't remember where I saw some research about this once. I think in the Harvard Business Review, people like doing favors for other people and knowing like, oh, okay, I did this nice thing. Now this person kind of owes me a favor. Like that's a good feeling for them. Yeah. And so all of that usually creates a favorable tailwind for helping me get these interviews and getting the information that I need.
Sounds really, really good. So I think that when people are hearing this and they're going, I do need marketing, I do need to polish up, who I'm speaking to, what's the a big takeaway or an aha that you would say, here's the one thing to consider with working with, Robin, because that's something that, intellectually, yeah, I should do that. But what's one thing that they're going to experience when they work with you? And then let's wrap up with what's the best way that people can reach out and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say, first of all, if you're feeling confused about your marketing in any way, shape, or form, feel free to just reach out. We can schedule a no strings attached chat and decide together if it might be a good fit for you to work with me. But I think the biggest thing is if you're feeling not only like you need marketing, but like, okay, I'm actually ready. I'm ready to make a mental shift about how I promote myself. I'm ready to put in the work to really understand my audience and understand how I position myself to that audience to make myself an easy yes for them, then I would say, all right, that's a good sign that you're ready, and we should talk, because I could definitely help you with that.
Excellent. Well, Robin, it was really great connecting with you and learning about what you do with your clients and your approach to business and marketing. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I appreciate the time.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.